Hey guys, I wanted to talk about how to get better at Legends of Runeterra because I kind of figured it's getting to this point where people are starting to kind of get to where they are skill wise right now, and they're starting to get hard stuck or struggling to improve or to keep improving. And so I kind of want to just roll through a couple of tips and I kind of want to run through a multi-step process that you should do to help you to get better. Step one is actually complete all these challenges. This is a huge thing you should do and you should complete right away, just because these help you understand and learn. Like this helps you understand the cards, some interactions, and it's kind of just a fast way to see a bunch of cards really quickly and learn the mechanics. And every time a set comes out with new mechanics and new cards, I believe they're going to put out new challenges. So this is always a good thing to go to right away as soon as the new cards drop and to learn them quickly. Step two is build decks or build decks or build a deck. And when you start playing, they give you an Elite Darius deck, and that's a really good deck to start out with, and to slowly grow and develop that deck, because that deck is a good deck and it's not bad by any means. It's not top tier, but it is just a good deck. At least it's really good, and it's a really good mid-range deck that is really hard to deal with for a lot of newer players specifically. But even the higher you go, it's still a strong deck. Like, build that deck, improve that deck, and then you should, in a part of the deck building process, you should go into normal. I don't like to say go into normals and try to learn the game, because I don't think that's what normals is. Because people in normals are very casual. They're not really trying to win. They're normally trying to complete quests. They're trying to play with a weird concept, or they're just trying to learn their deck and see if it's good. And so when you go into normals, you should not try to really win. You should try to learn your deck and see how it performs and see how good it really is. Step 3 is then ranked. That's when you really care about winning. And I only go to step 3 when you think your deck in step 2 is good enough. When your deck in step 2 is good enough, then you go to ranked, and that's when you start learning the game. And in this context, learning the game is learning matchups with that deck. And that's kind of like a huge thing with this game and most card games, is understanding what cards they might have and how you should play around that with your deck. Good examples of this is like Ionia with denies and recalls, stuns, or even Freyord with frostbite cards. Like these are kind of cards you should look out for. Another example is if you're going against like a Piltover deck and you have a 2-1 and they have a 2-2, you should always trade those 2 units, because if you don't, chances are they'll use a burn spell to kill your 2-1, because it's 1 health. It's super easy to kill, and then they'll just have 2-2 that's going to be hitting you a lot. And against a Piltover deck, it's really dangerous to be low health, because they tend to have a lot of options of just burning you out. That's step 3. Step 4 is repeating steps 2 and 3. And the reason why I say this is because playing multiple decks and learning their matchups is a good way to learn the game. Also, if you can't beat a deck, it's really good to play that deck and see how other people beat it, and that will help you learn and grow. And also playing it, you will see firsthand where that deck is good, where are its weak points, and all that. And that's kind of a good way to learn the game and really become really high ranked. Because then you're not, you know the cards, you know how they play. So when you see a deck that you've already played or you've already gone against, you kind of know how to beat it. This is like a step-by-step plan, but this is where it kind of goes off to the side. as like this is the point where I'll say, no, steps steps 2, 3, and 4 is something you'll do just throughout the game naturally. Step 5 is play expedition, and this is why it's off to the side. Like you can do this one along with 2, 3, 4. Step 5 is playing expedition, and playing an expedition is a good way to learn the cards, but it also helps you to explore other cards, other inspiration, other deck ideas that you might want to pursue. You know, because it gives you an option of 2 champions, and you keep playing maybe 3 or 4 champions you can see and play with and see if you like them. Also, it'll just give you a bunch of cards that you probably don't have, but you get to use an expedition that you might want to try building a deck around, or an idea to build a deck around. And so that's kind of why, you know, you kind of learn the game, and you learn a deck or two, and then you play expedition, and that's what I would recommend. Is don't go straight into expedition. Because if you don't know the game that well and you go straight into expedition, you might not do so good, and you might not get all the rewards you want. So that's why I'll say, you know, make like 2 decks, go through steps 2, 3, 4 like twice, and goes through steps 2 and 3 like twice, learn like 2 decks or play with 2 decks like a little bit, and then go into expedition. So then you have a pretty decent knowledge, and you can start racking up rewards in expedition, so you can really start building your library of cards. Step 6 is friendly matches. And this is something me and my friends do even today. Or this is what me and my friends do quite a bit. And that's what we just play against each other. And it's really helpful because when you go into ranked, you're just playing any other deck. And if you're playing the same deck consistently in ranked, that just means there's a very popular deck that's really good right now. And if you're losing against it, it's always good to go into friendly matches and just play against your friends where they or you play the deck, and you guys kind of just learn how to beat it and all this stuff. And just kind of like workshop some decks. And workshop, you know, you learn how to be a deck. You learn how to play decks together. And you're not playing against like AI or a random person. You're playing against another person that you can hop in a Discord call with and talk to each other about, you know, this was good, this sucked, I don't like that card, kind of is trash because I don't really care about it. Like, these are all kind of things that your opponent or your friend will say to you that really matters, because it will help you determine like whether you want to play this card or not, like whether to keep a card in your deck or not, or if you played something poorly. And yeah, I think those are like my 6 steps of how to really improve in Legends of Runeterra right now. The game is still new, so you know, like, you have websites like Mobilytics that shows you like all these top players' decks and all of this, and what are the best cards right now and all of that. And yeah, they are very useful as a jumping off point, but I definitely will say that in card games specifically, you have to kind of grind your own way. People play differently. A bronze player won't play like a challenger player, for example, and that's purely like, no, like that's obvious because one's better than the other. But, you know, card games have this weird thing where someone can accidentally make a great play or get really lucky with an opening hand. So that's why I always prefer self-analysis playing the game. You know, like while you play, you break down the game, or you break down like, oh, that was a very bad move because now I'm in a very bad position, or I kind of wasted that. And that's kind of how you get better and how you improve through the ranks. Because you have to be able to play against all decks. And I know I've seen some YouTubers that have just been like, oh, when you play against this deck, these are good decks to counter it. And right now, these are the best decks because it counters this deck. And that's kind of like, you know, I'm kind of like the mindset of, I think you play best with a deck that you are really passionate about and you really like. And those decks tend to be the ones that you create personally because you had this idea that really drove you to make the deck and really try to improve it. And so yeah, I think this is the end of the video. I think these are my tips and my step-by-step process to kind of help you get better at Legends of Runeterra.